It's late the next day, and we find Nicki climbing back into a window from a fire escape. She has spent most of the night thinking about Candace and her family. Suddenly, she hears a noise from the inside and realizes it's Vanessa. And it looks as though she's looking for something. She's also humming to herself, gleefully. "Hey, Nicki," Vanessa says melodically. "I guess you guys had a good night out." "You seem like you're in a great mood," Nicki says. "We did. You were fast asleep. You were tucked away pretty good under those covers. I don't know how you sleep like that," Vanessa says. Nicki had stashed a few blankets under her comforter to hide the fact she had an interesting night as well. Vanessa and Crowley had enjoyed a rare night out on the town, dinner and dancing. The mood suddenly takes a more serious tone. "Vanessa," Nicki asks, "do you know of anyone personally who has ever been bit by a vampire?" She continues. "Not personally," Vanessa says. "Didn't you wear that yesterday?" Vanessa continues. Nicki chuckles awkwardly. "Well, is it the same person?" Nicki asks. "I guess. I never thought about it. What's the difference, really? They're still killers. Bloodthirsty killers," Vanessa says, looking around for her purse. "Have you ever met any good ones?" Nicki asks. "Good ones? I doubt it. Like I said, they're just bloodthirsty animals," Vanessa says. "I think I've seen one walking around during the day," Nicki says. "That's impossible," Vanessa says. "I'm serious, Vanessa," Nicki says. Crowley enters casually. "Did you say vampires? In the daylight?" "Yes. On the way back from gymnastics, I helped a girl in an alley. In fact, I'm sure of it now. One minute he was one way, and the next, he was a dirty old man. But it didn't register until later," Nicki says. Crowley and Vanessa look at each other with confusion. It seems unbelievable, and it defies everything we know about vampires. It's our biggest advantage over them. I can't imagine what it would be like if they started walking in the daylight," Crowley says. He digresses, realizing they don't necessarily believe her. "Well, we'll look into it. Maybe the Hellmouth has something to do with it," Crowley says. "Did you guys find out anything else about it?" Nicki asks. "No, but we'll talk to the family and see if they know anything different," Vanessa says. "The family?" Nicki asks. "Crowley used to run with a team of vampire hunters until, well, the point is, they may know more," Vanessa says. "Cool. Crowley never mentioned them," she says, looking at Crowley. "Yeah, it's a long story," Vanessa says. Crowley remains silent and begins sifting through books. "Well, I'm gonna go wash up and maybe go for a run later. See you guys." Nicki says. "Okay, sweetie," Vanessa continues. "Bernie, I know you're not looking for anything. You're just avoiding," Vanessa says. "Gosh, I can't imagine. Vampires walking around in the sun. And these new hybrid vampires? What is the city coming to?" Vanessa continues. "You said Nicki beheaded 2 of them with ease?" Vanessa asks. Crowley nods yes, proudly. "You were certainly able to take one out effectively as well," Crowley says. "At least they can be killed just the same." "Bernie, we should follow up with the family and see what they know," Vanessa says. "Look, I know there's been some tension in the past," Vanessa continues. Crowley says nothing. "Bernie, I mean it this time. This is bigger than your ego. A Hellmouth just opened under the city. It's time we gathered some muscle and take LeBlanc down for good." Vanessa says. "I have the muscle," Crowley boasts. "Oh, you mean that girl sleeping on your couch? Bernie, you're crazy. You can't drag her around the city, using her as a weapon to exact vengeance on your enemy," Vanessa says angrily. "She's the Slayer, the chosen." Crowley says. So help me God, Bernie, if you say the chosen one. She's a little girl. It's okay for her to do girly things. Not on play dates with demons orbiting the entrance to hell, Vanessa says, angrily. Do I have to remind you our relationship has a divine purpose? I'm not some guy using her for my own personal vendettas. It's prophecy, Crowley boasts. Crowley begins gathering his things. Where are you going, Bernie? Vanessa says, digressing. To find my center, Crowley says. Meanwhile, Crowley has decided to visit an old friend for advice. He felt he couldn't go to his old hunter buddies, so his buddy Calvin was the next best thing. Calvin was a former vampire hunter, but he got wounded years ago, and he was Crowley's main ear to the streets. You still haven't made up with the family yet? Calvin says, after opening the door and looking at Crowley's face. It's been a month since I've seen you. How's Vanessa? She's still giving you hell? Calvin chuckles. Crowley chuckles as well. How'd that last lead work out for you? Calvin continues. You wouldn't believe it, Calvin. We found a hellmouth right there in New York City. A subway station. Non-functioning, of course. Crowley says. I knew it was something big. Sources say there was an increase in crime and rumors about vampires that are deformed, Calvin says. Yes, Vanessa and I think someone intentionally released them into the city. I'm assuming to try and kill the Slayer, Crowley says. You still have that thing living in your house? Calvin says. She's a girl, Calvin. A regular girl, Crowley says. I'm sorry. I think it's dangerous. Her powers are rooted in evil, Calvin says. If you ask me, she's just as dangerous as any vampire. Hey, but I'm not like the others. I believe in this prophecy stuff. But just get rid of it, Calvin says. Crowley gives him an angry stare. I'm sorry. I'm just worried. She could turn on you. These things are unpredictable, Calvin continues. I have a sacred duty to protect her and pass on knowledge about who she is. I won't abandon her in this world, Calvin. Without me, she might become the monster you think she is, Crowley says. Listen, if you hear anything new, please just let me know, Crowley says, preparing to leave. You know you can rely on me, friend, Calvin says. Later that day, Nicki heads to Roxy to find out how Candace is doing. She finds Roxy in another part of the abandoned tunnel, away from the hellmouth. Roxy and Devin, the vampire that bit Candace, have been feeding her rat blood. But recently, Devin has given Candace a pint of human blood against Roxy's orders. How is she? Nicki says. She's cool, but this idiot gave her a pint of human blood. I'm trying to give her rat blood so she wouldn't even know the difference, Roxy says. Nicki stares daggers at Devin. Well, it's like I told her. It's instinct. She knows that's not the blood she craves, Devin says. She was dying. Human blood is what she needs. You just don't want to admit it. An hour ago, she was gray. Now the girl's got color in her cheeks, Devin continues. Nicki looks at Roxy as she stares into the abandoned subway car housing Candace. She does look better, Roxy says. Where'd you get the blood? Nicki says, pushing Devin against the wall hard. Nicki, relax, Roxy says. There's a blood bank not too far from here. He must have snuck out last night, Roxy says. You let him wander around? What if he didn't come back? Nicki says. There's no way he wasn't coming back, Roxy chuckles. And what is that supposed to mean? Nicki asks, looking around. She quickly notices a makeshift bed and candles burning nearby. She looks back at Roxy. You slept with him? Nicki says, shocked. Roxy stays quiet. Don't flatter yourself, by the way, Devin says to Roxy. Nicki punches him in the face hard. Can I see her? Nicki says to Roxy. They both head to a debunked subway car where vampire Candace is tied. Candace? Oh my God. Well, look who it is, the vampire slayer. That girl is keeping me hostage. Tell her to let me go, Nicki. I want to go home. She thinks I'll kill people. Isn't that crazy? You know I can't do that, Candace. You're sick, Nicki says. You bitch. Who made you queen? I bet you think you're so strong. But you're a coward. The only reason you saved me is because you didn't want me to mess up your perfect new life as a superhero. But you're no hero. You're a killer, Candace says, enraged. I didn't kill you, Candace, and I'm not a coward, Nicki barks. Oh yeah? Could have fooled me. Have you been to my place yet? Have you seen my brother and sister? Have you talked to my mom and tell her you killed her daughter? Candace says, laughing all the while. Nicki storms out with tears in her eyes, but Roxy stops her. Roxy informs her that Candace only means to get to her emotionally. Don't let her get in your head, Nicki, Roxy says. She'll be right as rain in a few days. I promise, Roxy says. Hey, I know what'll make you feel better. Let's take it out on LeBlanc. You still down, right? Roxy asks. Nicki agrees, wiping away tears. Devin, watch her, Roxy barks to Devin. Devin nods drunkenly. Ugh, Roxy says. Are you sure we can trust him with her? Nicki asks. Yeah, he's not going anywhere if he knows what's good for him. Roxy says. The girls both leave. You okay, Nicki? Roxy asks. It's Candace. But the things she said, Roxy, she blames me, Nicki says. Don't let it get to you. She's angry and scared. She's feral now, but maybe Devin was right. Feeding her human blood in moderation should help us to tame her. If we can teach Candace to control her hunger, we should be good, Roxy says. And what if we can't? Then that means I'm gonna have to... Nicki stops abruptly. Slay her? Roxy asks. She's my best friend, Roxy. I can't do that. I've known Candy since the 3rd grade. Roxy looks at her with saddened eyes. Well, at least you have some good news to share with your non-dad. Cheer up. You have the location of your biggest enemy, and now you guys can do whatever you want to him, Roxy says. Remember when you said they were evil spirits coming out of the Hellmouth? Do you think that they would give a vampire the ability to walk around during the day? Nicki asks. I'm not sure. I guess it's possible. Why? Roxy asks. Never mind. What are you gonna do when you get there? Nicki asks. I told you. He busted up my humble dwelling with that stupid portal thing. So now I'm just gonna take a few valuables to finance my new life above ground, Roxy says. You're going to steal? Nicki asks, disappointed. Hey, you try living near a hellmouth and see if you wouldn't be looking for a quick come-up, Roxy says. I just want to see where he lives and what he looks like up close, Nicki says. Why does your non-dad hate him so much? Roxy asks. His name is Crowley, and he hunts vampires. And, well, LeBlanc is Nicki stops. A vampire who's trying to unleash hell in the city. Got it, Roxy says. You see that little path coming up? Roxy continues, opening the window. Yeah? Nicki replies curiously. It's a shortcut. His mansion is just up that hill. Hope you can run, girl, Roxy says. What? No, I'm not jumping out of the window. Come on, Roxy says, jumping out. Nicki follows reluctantly. At the same time, Crowley is on his way home. At the last minute, Calvin joined him. He wanted to see the photos Vanessa took of the Hellmouth. Just take me straight to it, Calvin says. He'd been trying to get Crowley to take him there during the ride. It's too dangerous, and I don't know how many vamps are there now. Vanessa and I were nearly killed by one of those hybrids, Crowley says. It actually grew bigger in less than 24 hours, he continues. Oh, that can't be good, Calvin says. I believe LeBlanc planted it there somehow. Some demonic ritual, Crowley says. LeBlanc? Interesting. Didn't believe he was a ritual type. He used to be more hands-on. I guess he's exploring new ideas, Crowley says sarcastically. At least we have an advantage this time, Calvin says. What advantage? Crowley says. The girl, the vampire slayer. Not more than 30 minutes ago, you were telling me to get rid of her, Calvin, Crowley says. True, but neither one of us has the strength to go toe-to-toe with LeBlanc like she does. Suddenly, Crowley notices Nicki on a bus with another young girl. He quickly turns the van around and follows. Crowley watched helplessly as the two young girls cross a busy street. Calvin realizes they are headed to a gated community just behind the bushes and trees. That's a pretty uppity neighborhood. I wonder where they're going, Calvin asks. Wish I knew, Crowley says under his breath. Nicki and Roxy race up the hill to find a fence preventing them from going any further. Small holes in the fence allow them to see in. Those are definitely vamps, Nicki says. Good thing there's a normal kind, she continues. There's two of them, and they appear to be security. If we want to get in, we gotta get by them, Roxy says. She looks at Nicki. Nicki smiles a little, secretly loving the excitement. She hadn't felt like this since high school. It was cool to hang out with someone. Want to see something cool? Nicki says, digging in her bag. Roxy looks on with anticipation. Nicki pulls out a ball of some sort. It looked metal. This, she says, holding it up. It will blind them just for a moment. Then we can take them out with ease, Nicki says. I don't know what to call it yet, but it works, she continues. You made that? Asks Roxy. Yeah, I invent things. I take things apart just to see how they work, Nicki says. Nicki digresses, feeling somewhat ashamed. That is so cool, Roxy says. Thanks, Roxy, Nicki says, feeling more confident. I'm sure lots of people do nerdy things like that, Roxy says casually. Thanks, Roxy, Nicki says sarcastically with a smile. Nicki throws it over the fence and it smashes in front of the two guards. A super bright flash blinds both men, but alerts some of the guards in the house. The two girls hop over the fence and simultaneously attack the two guys. Both men turn to dust. Come on, there's a safe on the second level, Roxy says, rushing toward the interior. We find LeBlanc relaxing with two women. His maid is clearing the table as two vamp girls pamper and dance seductively around him. So what's the word? Is anyone going to tell me what that big flash was about?
LeBlanc barks into a walkie-talkie. LeBlanc's lead henchman, who was a super vamp, walks in. A couple of days ago, LeBlanc opened a portal in an attempt to free an ancient deity. The entity would take the form of a dragon in our world. But LeBlanc didn't care. He planned to kill the dragon and usurp his powers. However, opening the portal was only the first step. What LeBlanc didn't realize is he had to keep feeding the Hellmouth until it becomes big enough for this deity to come forth. The Hellmouth has been growing and leaking energy ever since. Without anywhere to go, the negative energy inhabits any vamps within the vicinity of the Hellmouth. Most of them are spirits escaping from that hell dimension. Security walks in to reveal two of the guards aren't at their posts. LeBlanc isn't too concerned, but he sends his security officers to find them and another group to survey the premises surrounding the house. Nicki and Roxy duck off into a random room as they watch guards rush by. "I think they're looking for us," Roxy says. "When we leave, I'm going to need to know what you're not telling me," Nicki says. "Would you focus?" Roxy says. "Stairs are up ahead," she continues. "Roxy, these vamps have guns. This is serious," Nicki says. "Duh, they're bodyguards. Besides, they're probably expecting vampire hunters, not two girls," Roxy continues. "When they leave, we go up those stairs and boom, two rich girls," Roxy says, whispering gleefully. She rushes to the stairs and Nicki follows closely. Both girls get to a door and Roxy turns the knob and pulls it out effortlessly. Nicki and Roxy sneak into this dark room. The room was dimly lit by flashing security monitors. "There it is," Roxy whispers. She begins pulling on the door. "There's something else, a box with a weird symbol," Roxy says. "It's called a sigil," Nicki says. "Crowley has a book full of them." "Help me pull this open," Roxy says. "Both of us can definitely get this open," she continues. "You used me, didn't you? You couldn't do it alone," Nicki says. "Hey, don't do that little girl shit right now. We're this close. You know where he lives, and now you're a few $1,000s richer. Win-win. Nicki, come on," Roxy says, whispering intensely. Nicki hesitates. She walks over, bends down, and both girls pull on the safe door until it breaks open. Roxy pulls a bag out of her pocket and empties out the money from the safe. Nicki grabs the box with the sigil and sets it down on the ground. She smashes it open and realizes they're plans or spells that LeBlanc used for the Hellmouth. Nicki looks at her gather the money and Roxy rushes past her. Nicki follows. Roxy stops to find guards gathered at the bottom of the stairs talking with LeBlanc. LeBlanc stands about 6'5", African-American man, slim muscular build and very strong. He was rumored to be at least 250 years old. He wore a breastplate with small sigils on it, the same one that was on the diagrams Nicki found. The breastplate was nearly indestructible. Roxy motioned for Nicki to go back. "What's the big deal? I'll just stake him," Nicki says. "He's strong, Nicki, even for you." "Maybe," she says. "No, there's too many for just two of us," Roxy says. "If we go through there, we can jump down and rush out the back patio area. There's a steep hill, but it leads to the streets. We should be okay with minor injuries, at the most, broken bones," Roxy says, losing confidence. Nicki grunts. "You don't have a getaway?" Nicki whispers, frustrated. "Didn't expect a party at the end of the stairs," Roxy says. "They're coming," the Slayer says. As the men reach the stairs, they spot the Slayer first. She springs toward one of the guards and slams him against the wall to her left. As the other guard lifts his weapon, She kicks it from his hand simultaneously, holding the other vamp against the wall. As the other vamp flies back down the stairs, she pulls her stake out to kill the other vamp against the wall, and he explodes into dust. The other guard rushes back up the stairs at Nicki, but Roxy's tail catches him and he too vanishes into dust. "What have we here?" LeBlanc says, walking casually up the stairs with a sword aimed at the Slayer. "What's going on here? Who are you two?" LeBlanc says, aiming a gun at Roxy. LeBlanc still holding the sword at the Slayer. The three stood on a balcony overlooking the luxurious living room and front door. LeBlanc recognizes Roxy. "You," he says, looking at Roxy. Nicki looks at Roxy. "You're the girl from the subway tunnel," LeBlanc says. "I thought for sure you would have been." "It doesn't matter." LeBlanc fires at Roxy, but she dodges and rushes LeBlanc. Nicki tries to push LeBlanc out of the way, but he catches Roxy and throws her over the balcony. "Kill her," LeBlanc barks, referring to Roxy. Guards rushing up the stairs, but they turn around and head back to find Roxy. "As for you, are you going to cooperate, or do I need to?" Before LeBlanc could finish, the Slayer does a backflip. Her legs catch him on the chin and he stumbles backwards. Before he could recover, Nicki delivers a mighty hit to his chest plate, and it dents. The Slayer remained poised to fight. "You're her," LeBlanc says. He rips his shirt open to reveal his dented chest plate. "Impossible," he says, enraged. He charges toward the Slayer and dodges her attack, and grabs the Slayer by her neck and lifts her off her feet. "The chosen one. Thought I got rid of you and your family," he says, smashing the Slayer to the floor hard. Suddenly, the front door bursts open and Calvin comes through, shooting directly at LeBlanc. Crowley enters shortly to see him standing over someone. "Nicki!" Crowley yells. Calvin reloads to find two guards heading toward him. Meanwhile, Crowley continues to shoot at LeBlanc. Suddenly, LeBlanc leaps down from behind cover to the first level. "You and that old man got a pair on you. You just can't leave well enough alone. I thought the message I sent was pretty clear the last time, Crowley. By the way, my condolences to your buddies and their families. I came for the girl," Crowley says. "I see now. Makes sense. A vampire hunter working with a Slayer," LeBlanc says, moving slowly toward Crowley and Calvin. "Where is she?" Crowley says, cocking his weapon. "I see she dug into you pretty good," Calvin says, referring to his breastplate. "Yeah, well, she's dead now. And if she's not, I'll show her how working for me would be so much better," LeBlanc says, laughing hard. "I doubt it," Crowley says, lowering his weapon. LeBlanc looks at him curiously. Suddenly, the Slayer leaps down onto LeBlanc's shoulders, which startles him as she begins banging into his chest plate. Every other hit created another dent. LeBlanc desperately throws her off to the floor, but the Slayer springs up to headbutt his chest and throw a series of punches to his chest plate. "Damn," Calvin says, in awe. "She's fast," he continues. "Go get the van ready. Now," Crowley yells. The Slayer and LeBlanc go blow for blow, and she focuses on his chest plate as much as she could, but he was fast and strong. "Nicki, let's go. Now," Crowley barks. Crowley fires off shots, and the Slayer rushes past him and out the door. He throws a flashball that stuns LeBlanc. He grunts in anger, but is blinded by the flash. When his vision returns, he sees the van tearing down his driveway and through a fence. Later that night, Crowley and Calvin are having a drink, assured no one followed them back to the loft. They gathered around the kitchen table. Nicki is in the living room eating and watching TV, bruised but okay. Vanessa just put her key in the door and rushes in. She stops by the living room to greet Nicki briefly and heads to the kitchen. "You guys okay?" she says. "She looks bruised, Bernie. Did you apply ice to her face?" "She looks like she went a few rounds with a grizzly," she continues, grabbing ice and a rag. Vanessa pops Crowley on the head as she rushes past him to tend to Nicki's swollen eye and anything else. Vanessa sits down and applies the ice rag to Nicki's face. "I'm fine," Nicki says. "You should have seen it earlier," Nicki laughs. "I know you're strong, baby, but you still need to take care. You're not indestructible," Vanessa says, dabbing her with the ice rag. "Are you hurt anywhere else?" Vanessa asks. Nicki lifts her shirt to reveal a bruise on her side. She puts it down quickly and assures Vanessa she's okay. "It hurts a little, but I'm fine. I can tell it's getting better." Crowley stands in the doorway with Calvin standing behind him. Vanessa looks at him and rushes past the men. "Do you need anything? I'm taking Calvin home," Crowley says. "I'm good," Nicki says, sinking into the couch. She covers herself with a blanket and continues watching TV casually. Crowley heads back to the kitchen to grab his keys. He finds Vanessa in the kitchen. "You okay, babe?"
I can't believe you guys didn't have the decency to at least give her an ice pack, Bernie. You two get on my nerves.
Calvin walks in. "Vanessa, you should have seen her. She beat the hell out of his breastplate. Indestructible my ass." Calvin laughs. Vanessa perks up. "Really?" she says, looking at Crowley. "It's true. He looked just as shocked as you do," Crowley says. "I think she'll be able to take him down. She just needs more training," Crowley says, looking at Calvin. They both smile. Vanessa smiles too, but she feels uncomfortable about them using Nicki. "Let's go," Crowley says to Calvin. Both men leave.